Welcome. You're listening to The Best of Investing. I'm your host, Edward Brown, along with my co-host, Nam Phan of Pacific Private Money and Rob Spinoza of Guaranteed Rate. Our phone number is 888-912-1190. Use that number to answer the trivia question for a 5-pack tanning certificate given away during this show. And that certificate's not sponsored by the radio station, but by Tan Bella Tanning Salon with 2 locations in San Francisco and 1 in Marin. And today's trivia theme is TV shows. Okay?
Ooh, TV shows, nice.
TV shows, yeah, that'll be kind of fun. Not too hard. You'll probably get the answers. So usually we start off with generic real estate, but I think today we're going to start off with Pacific Private Money Fund, or Pacific Private Money has started a new fund, and it's called the Pacific Southwest Note Fund. And the thing that's really cool about it is it buys discounted seller carryback notes. Now, what are those? You got basically a situation where you've got a homeowner who sells a house to a borrower who maybe couldn't qualify for a loan, and so the seller carries back the mortgage just like a bank. So let's say it's a property, $100,000, and the borrower puts down $15,000, and the seller takes the $85,000 note, puts on a 6% interest rate, and collects monthly payments for 15 years. Well, what goes on after 5 years or so is Mr. Seller, who's carrying that $85,000 note that's now been paid down to $82,000, says, you know what, I don't want to hold this note forever. I need some cash. Well, where can he sell that note? So we do a lot of marketing, and we get these people to call us to basically say, okay, how much would you give me for the note? And we work out our numbers. And let's say we offer them $73,000, what turns out to be about, let's say, a 14% interest rate to us. Now, sometimes these sellers say, no, that's not high enough. Other times they'll say, well, if I could get just a little bit
value of
take
money.
it. What's that?
Present value of money.
Sometimes they just need it for whatever reason. So,
right.
So we started a fund, or Pacific Private Money started a fund called the Pacific Southwest Fund, because most of these deals are coming from Texas. And the foreclosure laws in Texas are very friendly for the lenders. So it's even better than California from that end of it. The rate of return is really good because the investor is going to get a preferred yield of 9% with a target yield of 12+%. And you say, well, why would there be a target yield? Well, the reason is because some of these loans will pay off earlier than expected, and you get to recoup that discount as a profit a lot sooner. They either sell the house, refinance, or if you have to foreclose, you'll end up making a lot more money on the house because the house is worth $100,000 and you're buying the note. And my numbers are actually off from the standpoint of buying it for $73,000 because the average on something like this would be purchased for about $55,000. So the loan to value or the investment to value is very, very low. And so that fund just started August 1st, and we've already had a good amount of interest.
So as an example, in the example you gave, let's say the borrower purchased a home from the seller for $100,000. They put 10% down, okay, and the seller they carried a note for $90,000.
Yeah.
And then after, like you were saying, let's say 10 years, it's paid down to $80,000, but we buy it for $70,000. When that borrower pays us off, let's say that we, from time to time we'll get a payoff. They're selling it. They sell the house for whatever, $110,000. They're paying us the $90,000 loan, right?
Or the paid down.
Or excuse me, the reduced amount, right? The remaining principal, which is going to be higher than what we paid for the loan.
Correct. Go ahead.
Oh,
yeah.
So
I think it's important. It's important for those following along to know that the borrower is still paying the original note,
correct,
which was at $90,000, like you said, starting. But you guys bought it for less than that. They don't know that happened. Well, they may know it happened, but they don't know it happened.
They don't know what price was paid for it.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
And the people in Texas, generally, their income compared to their mortgage payment is going to be a safer amount than people in California. In California, most people in California, they kind of push the limit as to what their mortgage payment is. And some of these mortgage payments are, $500-600 a month. And so
Mhm.
most of these people are not going to default on their loan because they're going to lose their house for $500 a month. Where else are they going to live? So the default rate
Right.
is really low. And even during this COVID situation, not only has everyone paid on time, there hasn't been one request for deferment. Nobody's asked.
Wow.
Yeah, nobody's even asked. And I think the reason is because they look and they just say, "Hey, I got a good deal going on here. You know, I'm paying $500 a month to live. You know, where else am I going to go?" So,
Hey, Edward, so on that note, I have an article in front of me that talks about the typical American debt, and it totals $51,900, and that includes mortgage loans, car loans, auto loans, et cetera. So there you go. I mean, this is your demographic.
that's
Wow.
it. Hey guys, we're going to cut to our first commercial break. We come back. We're going to continue on. Rob's going to tell us more. But anyone who's interested, who's listening to the show, who's interested in that, can call Pacific Private Money at 415-883-2150 or go to pacificprivatemoney.com and find out more about the Pacific Southwest Note Fund that's paying 9%. All right, first trivia question. TV shows. What business did George Jefferson own in The Jeffersons? The TV show The Jeffersons, which was a spinoff of All in the Family, right? All right, call 888-912-1190. First caller with the correct answer is going to win that tanning certificate. Don't touch that dial. The Best of Investing will be right back. Welcome back to the Best of Investing. Again, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Nam Phan and Rob Spinoza. Mark Hanf is off today. First trivia question on TV shows. What business did George Jefferson own in the TV show The Jeffersons? You guys remember?
Was it a laundromat?
I didn't watch a lot of TV as a kid, but I think it was like a laundromat or something like that.
It was a dry cleaning.
Close?
Yeah, dry cleaning. Very good. Very good.
Oh,
not bad. Okay.
that was a great show, by the way.
It was fun. He was great. I'm going to make a quick mention here for the Half Moon Bay Kayak Company, where you can discover the world of sea kayaking, paddleboarding, and biking in Half Moon Bay. They have, single and double kayaks, a wide variety of stand-up paddle boards, and many different bikes to suit your needs, which you can use to bike the famous Half Moon Bay Coastal Trail. Call them at 650-773-6101 or go to hmbkayak.com for more details. All right, Nam, you wanted to continue on with our Pacific Southwest Note Fund.
Yeah, and tying into what Rob was mentioning about the average debt load of U.S. in the U.S. You said, Rob, it was 51,000 or so, I think, right? And that includes mortgages, auto, and other, maybe non-secured debt. That's for us living in California, the Bay Area specifically. I would consider that really low, carrying that kind of debt. If it includes your mortgage, I mean, obviously, in the Bay Area and other major metros, having a mortgage of 50,000 or is, to die for. So, the Southwest Note Fund, one of the questions I had originally, and investors are asking us is, geez, how big is this opportunity? Because, how many people have a note that's going to be 50, 75,000 or a mortgage? And to Rob's point, or to his facts that he mentioned earlier, stats, must be a lot of people. Yeah. And so, this is not just it's a non-California phenomenon of seller carrybacks, right? Or maybe non-major metro.
Yeah, because that's the other thing is you got to find out who is going to sell a house and carry back a mortgage. Because it's not a Wells Fargo mortgage, right? It's got to be some homeowner who wants to sell the house.
Well, and also how many mortgages are in the U.S. are seller carryback? I think you had mentioned it previously. It's like a third of mortgages in the U.S.
Rob, didn't you tell us that last month that it was?
Well, a third of properties are free and clear. But one of the things that you're covering here that is interesting is that there are parts of the United States where seller carryback is pretty common because the buying demographic just does not rely on traditional credit. Maybe they just are, they're brought up that way, or they have a reluctance to use banks or something like that. Yeah. So when they go to buy a house, they don't have the cash to do it, and they don't have the credit to get a typical loan. Because if they haven't used credit, their credit score may not be sufficient, or they have really thin credit files. They just don't have enough credit.
Well, the other thing is,
And-
if there's so many, sorry for interrupting, but if there's so many houses that are free and clear, you got mom and pop who basically say, listen, if, you know, I mean, they're smart enough to realize that with interest rates the way they are, if they can get a
Right.
6% return that they know is based on their house versus getting cashed out and putting the money in the bank, that's a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So,
definitely.
okay.
So, the minimum investment in this is
50,000 with a 1-year hold, no fee to get in, no fee to get out. So again, for more
Cool.
information on that, call Pacific Private Money at 415-883-2150 or go to pacificprivatemoney.com and look for the Pacific Southwest Note Fund paying a preferred return of 9%. All right. Hey, Rob.
Well, I think
Go ahead.
the thing about that too is that when you look at people with their investment, we're talking mostly to Californians here, but that's a great diversification play because
Sure.
not only is it, it's not your typical stock and bond investing. It's not, it's outside of those sorts of things, but the rate of return is really good. And you begin to understand the safety of the investment based on how close it is to the bone. It's somebody making a loan to someone. And I just think that's how that stuff really ought to be viewed as a great diversification play.
Well, we just got paperwork back for a loan where the house is worth 120 something thousand, and the loan that we're buying is only 30,000.
Yeah.
So the odds of losing on that are going to be pretty small. And the nice thing is that a lot of these borrowers are just going to pay their mortgage like clockwork. So it's not like, the one problem with doing individual deeds of trust is you keep getting paid back quickly because people refinance. They don't want to carry this interest rate. But you don't have to go chase new loans. You've got a nice portfolio until the person sells the house or does decide to refinance. But usually they just.
Well, one other thing I want to bring up about that, because we see this happen here in California, our loan sizes are pretty large. So it makes refinancing cost effective. And the reason for it is because your transactional costs in a refinance don't vary a whole lot. So let's say you have a $400,000 loan and it may cost you $3,500 to refinance it. And maybe you're going to save $200-300 on that deal, and it's going to pay back over time. And it's a worthwhile investment. Now, as the loan size goes larger, your transactional costs don't scale, along with that. So you might pay $4,000 or $5,000 to refinance $1.5 million loan, and your savings could be $700 a month. So you're paying off even faster. Well, it's true the other way too. So as that loan size gets smaller, even if that guy's at 6 or 7%, it just may not make sense for him to refinance at 3.5. Even though it sounds like, whoa, who wouldn't want to do that, right? But if it costs you a couple grand to do it and the payment's that small anyway, you might be saving $20-30 a month, $20-30 a month. You'll never recoup the closing costs.
Well, and here's one of the other things. Every once in a while, and I've seen this, where a loan comes in, and guess what the interest rate was?
Oh, double digits or something?
0%. The seller basically just said, just give me $100 a month until this thing's paid off. No interest. And it's great because then but obviously we don't earn a 0% interest rate because we're buying it at a discount. So the odds of someone refinancing that is close to 0. Unless you're going to get a negative interest rate.
Well, we're not quite there yet. But on that note, one thing that happened this week, or last week, I should say, is the Federal Housing Finance Agency, the FHFA, imposed a fee on conforming conventional refinance.
Yeah. We're going to talk more about that when we get back because that's brand new news. Okay.
Yeah.
That is brand new. Okay, so here's our second trivia question on TV shows. You ready? Who played Charlie Harper in the TV show 2.5 Men? Who played Charlie Harper in the TV show 2.5 Men? All right, call 888-912-1190. The first caller with the correct answer is going to win that tanning certificate. And when we come back, Rob's going to explain more about these new FHA points and everything. And there's a bunch of rules going on. In fact, even I think September 2nd, aren't the eviction rules being sort of tossed to the side? That was another thing that just came out. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, definitely a few rule changes coming on. So you're definitely going to want to stay tuned for the best of investing, and don't touch that dial because we are going to be right back. Welcome back to the best of investing. Edward Brown here, along with Mark Hanf, who's not here. Nam Fon is here, and Rob Spinoza is here. All right, second trivia question: who played Charlie Harper in 2.5 Men?
Was it Charlie
Don't
Sheen?
know.
It was Charlie Sheen. Yeah, I guess they figured they'd keep his name Charlie. That way, he wouldn't have to worry about remembering his first name.
Nice. I never watched a single episode of that.
Oh, is that right? But you knew about it, though. So, Rob, what's this new fee going on with the FHA loans?
Well, so yeah, not to confuse FHA with the FHFA, which is the Federal Housing Finance Agency. Okay. So they're the agency that more or less governs Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and they set policy for the GSEs, the government-sponsored entities. In this case, what they did, they sprung on the industry a couple of weeks ago an additional fee for refinance loans. And it was a 50 basis point fee. So I think a lot of people heard that as being, oh, my rate just went up 0.5%. It doesn't work that way. But what it roughly equated to was if you were getting quoted a 3% rate on Wednesday morning, with that announcement, all things equal, you would have been at 3.25% approximately. So it would have come as a surprise to you for having done nothing different. It was an underlying cost of doing business that they imposed on the industry. And then that was supposed to take effect for all loans funding after September 1st. But remember, if your loan was already in process, it would have been funding after September 1st. So in effect, it touched everybody.
But why? What's the reasoning?
Well, the reason is to make more money.
Okay.
So I mean, there's a lot of competing ideas about why they did this, and you know, I can't help but think, I'm not a conspiracy theorist.
You're cutting in and out there, my friend.
Revenue sort of starved environment.
Wait, go back. We kind of missed that. You kind of cut in and out. So you're not a conspiracy theorist.
So in the COVID environment, in the budget, you know, strapped environment that we're in, revenue reduced environment we're in, you know, they're looking to increase capitalization of the government-sponsored entities. Some feel because they want to privatize them, okay? And so they want to raise capital, and that helps them achieve that objective. But there are a lot of conflicting viewpoints about why they did it. Needless to say, it affects the consumer adversely because it adds an additional fee on the back end of the loan that gets priced into the rate sheet that a consumer gets quoted. So what happened with that is now that is temporarily on hold. So we learned that this week that is now on hold. But the moral of the story should be the same to the consumer who's out there looking to refinance. And that is, if a rate makes sense to you now, take advantage of it. Don't play around, because these are the sorts of things people don't expect to happen. They go looking at, well, where will rates go? Will they get higher or lower? You know, they're assuming things they know, but these are the things you don't know. And you have to be careful with that. So again, another reminder that credit capacity and credit cost doesn't have to be linear. It doesn't have to be predictable. The industry can do what it wants to do, and we're all subject to what they do.
Well,
so,
what are the odds that once you get your loan and you're into it for 3 years, they suddenly go, oh, by the way, we're just going to tack on an extra half point because.
No, you can't. Well, I mean, look, anything could happen, but your note is a contract. So, you know, they'd be hard pressed to do that. But I've never seen that happen.
Yeah.
But while your loan is floating, while you're doing your shopping, while you're doing your hand wringing, while you're doing your question asking, things can change. So be careful about that, and don't, look a gift horse in the mouth. We've got great rates.
Okay, that comes to an email that we received for you that says, realistically, how low can interest rates go from here?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the answer to that. We said they couldn't go any lower than 3 7/8. You know, we said they couldn't go any lower than 5%. We said they couldn't go any lower than 3, and here they are. So, I mean, could we see a 1 3/4% interest rate next year? I suppose we could.
Could we see negative? I mean, I've heard that potentially there's a possibility for a negative interest rate.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what that looks like, but I know the world that it exists and is scary, right? Because if it's negative interest rates, the whole banking industry is upside down, and that has to have repercussions to all of us, some good, some bad. So, I don't know what to say about that, but I can tell you that, what I hear myself saying to my clients is, if things get better, that's a great problem to have, right? So if you're locked at 2.75% and things go to 2.25%, good for you. You can reconsider what you're going to do. You can take steps to try to get that lower rate. But if they go the other way, you want to be protected. And we're in one of those environments right now where, you have a lot of wind in your sails as far as interest rates go. But things could change, and you don't want to see them get away. Lock down what you can. That's, I think, the best advice going forward.
And how do people get a hold of you if they're interested in refinancing or buying a house?
Yeah, both purchase and refi, 1 to 4 units, California. We're happy to help. 415-367-5959. I'm Rob Spinoza. I'm with Guaranteed Rate, one of the larger independent mortgage banks in the country. And
yep, definitely.
A year ago, if people had the option of getting an interest rate below, in the 3s, they would just be tickled pink. But now you're in that environment, and you're like, boy, should I hold out for that extra, quarter point? And it's like, you don't want to time the market. If the circumstances make sense for you now,
chasing it,
do it.
Tough.
Yeah, you want, you want certainty over the unknown, and trying to time it over, a quarter point. I don't know, just
that's always kind of tough.
Couldn't be more true. And everybody would be wise to take that advice.
Okay.
Yeah.
When we come back, Nam, there's a question that comes in from a listener and says, what are the advantages of a fund over individual deeds of trust? So you have an investor here who's looking at investing in a fund versus investing in individual deeds of trust. And our next trivia question here. Do you guys remember the TV show I Dream of Jeannie? Remember Barbara Eden? Quite a even at 80 years old, she still looks good. All right. Yeah, she was my babe when I was a kid. All right. Here's the trivia question. In I Dream of Jeannie, what was Tony Nelson's job? That was the guy who got her out of the bottle, right?
He was the husband, right? Or the kind of like, was he?
They eventually got married in the show, and that kind of was the end of it. Apparently nobody wanted them to get married except for the audience. But then after they did, they all said, yeah, this didn't work. They should have just gone back to just always being where she always wanted him. And he was like, no. All right. So that's our trivia question is in the TV show, the old TV show in I Dream of Jeannie, what was Tony Nelson's job? Okay. And
all right.
when we come back, we're going to ask Nam this email question about the advantages of a fund over individual deeds of trust. So stay with us.
Great. And we'll do a couple of deals of the week, too.
A couple of deals of the week. All right. Stay with us. You're listening to The Best of Investing. Don't touch that dial. We're going to be right back. Welcome back to The Best of Investing. One more time, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Nam Phan and Rob Spinoza. Third trivia question. In the TV show I Dream of Jeannie, what was Tony Nelson's job?
Was he an astronaut?
Yes, he was an astronaut. Very good.
Didn't he land on an island? Isn't that what happened? His capsule landed on an island, and he found the bottle.
Yeah, that exactly. And if you go back, Barbara Eden, she was a babe, an absolute babe.
For years after that, I would go to the beach just looking in the sand for a bottle.
Edward, I think the proper term back then was she was a fox, wasn't she?
Fox, yeah. Well,
Foxy.
Yeah, I think that came out in the 70s,
Oh, maybe. I could be wrong about that. A little before my time.
You're aging yourself, yes. Okay. No, an email comes in from a listener that says, what are the advantages of a fund over individual deeds of trust?
Yeah, great question. So the question is about when you're investing in mortgage debt, do you want to invest in a single loan, essentially a single property, or would you want to invest in a fund that's made up of a bunch of individual loans or pooled loans, which is what a fund is. It's a mortgage pool, and in our case, it's a mortgage debt fund. So there's pros and cons to both. I mean, with a individual deed of trust, some of the pros are that generally you can earn a higher rate of return because you're not paying management fees to a fund manager like you would for, being invested in a fund. The con, though, of that is that a couple things. You're the bank in that case, as an individual trustee investor. You can, if the borrower defaults and falls behind, essentially, and you have to take the property back, the expense of, that dissolution, taking the property back, rehabbing it, any legal fees, that's borne by the investor, you. And so, that can be a headache. Managing, the borrowers and talking to them or working with them on the payments. Servicer does that, but ultimately you're involved in it as well because the servicers are going to lean to you and say, hey, what would you like to do? This borrower said they're going to be able to make a payment, but they said that last month and they haven't. And then finally, you can be invested in a note. Maybe it was for 24 months, but if the borrower refinances into a conventional loan or out of your loan in 8 months, well, you're back in cash. And then you have to look for the next opportunity, do the evaluation, and go through the whole, the whole process again. And some investors really like that, though. They like the control. They like being the bank. And in some cases, if they have to take the property back, now they own real estate. And so those are some of the pros and cons of being an individual trustee investor or investing in individual notes. For the funds, the con that I started out with is that you earn a slightly lower rate of return. But here's are all the pros. It's diversified. You're invested across multiple properties, multiple loans. And so in the fund manages collecting payments from the borrowers, manages workouts with them if you have to eventually take the property back, the fund management, and that's how they earn their fees. They handle all of that. So you don't have to be an active investor when you're investing in a fund. And that diversification helps so that, sometimes a borrower does fall behind or you have to file a notice of default, take the property back. If there was a loss, that loss would be spread across the entire pool. In the case of the Pacific Private Money Fund, we haven't had a loss. And when we've had to sell a property and foreclosed on it, it's actually made a profit 3 out of the 4 times we've done it. The other time was break even. Okay. So you're paying that management fee. The net to you in the case of the Pacific Private Money Fund is about 7.5%. You're a passive investor. The team at Pacific Private Money handles, the servicing, collecting the payments, following up with borrowers who fall behind, and all of the headaches that can come if you have to foreclose. The other pro, an important one, is loans pay off all the time. And with trustee investing, if you get paid off, like as I mentioned, you're sitting in cash again. With the fund, once your funds are invested, they're always working for you. So you're earning that 7.5%, 8% every month. And that way, you don't have to worry about looking for the next deal. That's our job. So we continually look for new loans to put in the fund as loans pay off, or put new loans in the fund as we grow the number of investors and the investment in the fund. Requirements, just like the Pacific Southwest Note Fund, are that in the Pacific Private Money Fund, you have to be accredited. So it's $50,000 or $1 million net worth. You can't include your personal residence in that. $50,000 minimum investment, and it's a 1-year hold. But beyond that, it's pretty straightforward. No cost going in or out.
And since we've got a couple of minutes, why don't you give us a deal of the week so people can see the kind of loans you're talking about?
Yeah, I'll give you a deal. Actually, before I do that, I just want to mention there's the SEC amended the accredited investor definition.
I was just going to ask you about
that. Excuse me. So they amended it so that certain professions can now qualify even if they don't meet the $1 million threshold for being accredited or the certain income threshold. And those professional designations could be people who hold certain licenses in the financial space, and I don't know that they've come out with a list of the actual professions yet, But there are a number of people who have reached out to us and said, hey, I'm in finance. I'm a sophisticated investor, but I don't meet the $1 million threshold. Well, this new amendment will change that. Also, employees, knowledgeable employees of the fund can invest. And so these are nice little additions to this. I'd like them to expand it even further, but if you don't have $1 million net worth or don't make $200,000 a year over the last couple of years, look for this amendment and see if you can now qualify, because it's a great way to get into investing in funds like ours or other Reg D funds or other investments that require investors to be accredited.
Okay.
Do you want me to do a deal of the week?
Well, you know what? Give out your information, because on our next segment, we're going to go to a deal of the week.
Sure. So to learn about any of the funds we talked about, the Pacific Southwest Note Fund or the Pacific Private Money Fund, call us at 415-883-2150, or you can go to www.pacificprivatemoney.com and learn about not only the Pacific Private Money Fund and Southwest Fund, but we have 2 others as well.
Very good. All right. So when you come back, you're going to give us a deal of the week so we know exactly what kind of loans Pacific Private Money is doing. All right, don't touch that dial. The Best of Investing will be right back. Welcome back to the Best of Investing. Last time for today, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Nam Phan and Rob Spinoza. No trivia question, but Nam, what kind of loans? Give us a deal of the week. What kind of loans is Pacific Private Money doing for people?
Yeah, well, actually, the 2 deals of the week that I'll do aren't representative of the majority of the loans we do because these are both seconds. But after I explain why we do we do loans where we're in second position, it'll make sense. But you know, at Pacific Private Money, you know, we make loans on residential real estate, primarily residential real estate, excuse me, purchases and refinances. We're alternative lenders where much of Rob's product is the one you'd want to go to first if you're trying to buy a home and get those rates in the 3s or even lower. But at Pacific Private Money, we're oftentimes plan B. And this week, or in this last couple of weeks, we had a couple of deals where somebody came to us to buy another home. And again, they have a current home, but instead of doing a bridge loan where we're cross-collateralizing, these folks had, in one case, it was somebody buying in Tiburon, moving from the East Bay. They owned their East Bay home it was for, their value was $850,000. They owed $130 first on it. So they had a very small first relative. And they wanted a loan basically on that departing residence and to use those funds as a down payment on the purchase. So we give them a loan in second position, $300,000. So we're behind the first, which is $130, but the combined loan to value is 51%. So essentially they took cash out in the form of a second to use as the down payment on their Tiburon home. And, you know, we'll get paid off as soon as they sell their departing residence, but it was a second. We like it because, you know, in spite of the fact that people think, oh, seconds aren't
risky,
good,
yeah.
you know, not a risky position. Well, the LTV was 51%. We're charging a rate of 10.5.
Wow.
It's convenient for the seller. They probably won't have this loan for more than 3 or 4 months because I'm sure their home in the East Bay will sell quickly. So it solves a lot of problems. And then the second deal of the week, very similar. Somebody was pulling money out as a second, also for the down payment, although in this case, the combined loan to value is a little over 70%, was over 70%.
Okay.
But other circumstances, you know, super high FICO scores. Again, we know that their departing residence is going to sell quickly. You know, these are representatives of the types of seconds we do, but largely 80% of the loans we do are first. So in this case, people both came to us because, you know, the ability to solve that problem and use proceeds or take out cash from their existing residence to use towards
Okay.
down payment. So
All right, Rob, we have
people
just
need a loan?
yeah.
Oh, real quick, people
Yeah.
need to get a loan, call us 415-883-2150.
Good. And Rob, we have just about 30 seconds left. So if you want to finish up anything. You wanna give it-
Nearly 60% of Californians have lost income due to COVID-19. So a couple of things about that. One is if you are in any sort of difficulty with your lender, give them notice, let them know, see if you can do something to help out on that. And then certainly if you are out there still looking to buy, refinance, income stable and all that, we're always happy to help on any residential mortgage related issues. So feel free to get in touch, and I look forward to being of service.
Very good. All right, guys, we're going to cut to our thoughts for the day here. That was a fast show, wasn't it? If communism has a leader, is it still communist? How about that? Interesting, huh? And all my life, I thought air was free until I bought a bag of chips.
That's funny.
All right, tune in next week to The Best of Investing. We're going to be giving away more free prizes for answering trivia questions. Thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm Edward Brown, wishing you the best of investing. So long.